You're listening to a podcast from the Finnish Football Show. Yes, it's the Finnish Football Show. I'm Mark Wiltshire, back with another match report episode, and we're going to look today at the two recent games: Kazakhstan 0, Finland 1, and Finland 0, Denmark 1. I'm joined today by Keke Muleri. Hi, Keke.
No moi.
And by Ali Manson. Hi, Ali.
Moikka.
And I think this is our team today. Mark and Rich are not around, so we'll crack on and look at these Euro 2024 qualifiers. These are Group H games 5 and 6, and the Huuhkajat battled to 3 more important points over these two games to remain among the contenders at the top of Group H. 1-0 away win to Kazakhstan saw a pretty dogged Finland team controlling possession, taking a late win through Oliver Antman in what was really a scrappy match. And we'll put some details around that description. And in the game a few days later, roles were somewhat reversed, with Denmark dominating possession and goal-scoring chances, but they had to wait late before getting the winning goal. Lukas Radetzky pulled off a string of fine saves to deny Denmark, but really Finland's lack of cutting edge ultimately meant they had no reply to Højbjerg's winner. But let's go back to... We don't want everyone to stop listening, so let's go back to the Kazakhstan game and just talk through what went on in that away win in Kazakhstan. Keke, first of all, talk us through the starting lineup.
Yeah, so Rive went with a 5-3-2, I guess you could call it, or a 3-5-2, depending on the play, whether we were attacking or defending. And yeah, obviously captain Lukas Radetzky in goal, and then we had Ilmari Niskanen, Richard Jensen, Robert Ivanov in the centre, Arttu Hoskonen, Nikolai Alho making up the defence, and then we had Kaan Kairinen, Rasmus Schuller, Oreva Antman in the middle, and up top it was the Pukki and Pojanpalo. So that's how we lined up. Pretty decent lineup, I'd have said. Possibly, you know, Niskanen and Alho, you know, we've spoke about the wing backs are sort of fairly attack minded. Nice to see Antman get a starting berth in that midfield, and obviously the ever present question of can Pukki and Pojanpalo play together. So yeah, it was an interesting lineup.
Yeah, I thought it was a really I wrote my first note was scrappy, nervy start with possession kind of being conceded backwards and forwards. But that scrappy, nervy start lasted for the first quarter of an hour of the game. It really was. And Kazakhstan were very physical as well. Like, no one was really dirty, but they were getting stuck in and a little bit niggly throughout the game. There was a high boot on Rasmus Schuller and a foul or a clash of heads with Nikolai Alho, but it was going on all the way through the game. Did it feel that way to you continuing through the first half?
I felt it was a really controlled performance, to be honest. I thought kept the ball really well. There was never really a moment that I was feeling that we were put under a lot of pressure for a prolonged period of time. I think particularly defensively, Ivanov and Hoskonen were terrific in particular. And I'll speak maybe a little bit about the Denmark game later on as well. But yeah, it felt like constant control without threatening too regularly. I still felt that Finland were the better team throughout. Still looked like the team that if there was going to be a goal, it would be Finland. But I think that was my biggest takeaway from the game. Going away from home, tricky trip. It's a long way to go. I think it maybe did help that some of the players do play on an artificial surface. I know we were talking, was it an artificial pitch. Yesterday, I think it was. Luckily, Finnish players are used to that a bit more than other nations are, and so that may have not necessarily helped, but I don't think it hindered at all.
Well, there's some negative comments about the pitch. I read something in one article about it being a difficult plastic pitch.
It looked wet. It looked very like they definitely had watered it, because the ball was skidding off the surface, and perhaps Kazakhstan wanted that, to create a little bit of chaos, because it sort of felt like they knew they weren't going to control the game, so they were sort of hoping that adding maybe a little bit of chaos, the tricky conditions, a wet pitch was going to perhaps go in their favor.
I mean, when we did the preview show, I mentioned, not that I wasn't an expert on Kazakh football, but I wasn't sure how full the arena would be, how the locals would take to the game, but it was absolutely jam packed, and the Kazakhs certainly got behind their team. There was plenty of noise in there, and it must have been, I know all the Finland players are professionals, but I'm sure that hostility, it doesn't go unnoticed. So maybe that's why those first 10 or 15 were a bit nervy. It must, in that sort of atmosphere, you want to get your first touch out of the way and control that ball. And on that skiddy, wet, artificial surface, I don't suppose it was easy. But I mean, we did settle down eventually. And as Ali said, when you look at the stats, I mean, the 1-0 win, which I must say at the end of the game, I was absolutely over the moon with. Yourself, Mark, you mentioned earlier off air that we did have a couple of comments on the previous video from a Kazakh supporter who said that we'd underestimated them. But we did mention in the last episode the great run they've been on, the fantastic results they've picked up. So I'm not sure we did quite underestimate them as much as he thought. But to come away from there with a 1-0 away win, I was absolutely over the moon, because it was a tricky place to go. But I think when you do look at the statistics, like the passes completed and shots on target, etc., I think Finland were the deserved winners, to be honest.
Yeah, I noted that we battled, especially in the first half, battled well in midfield, and the approach play and passing was really good, and yet the final ball into the box wasn't good enough. And again, I read this article Ari Virtanen wrote, saying that Finland were trying, or have been trying recently, to be much more clinical with their final balls into the box. So they're not putting a large number in, but they're trying to be really, really precise when they do it. And well, it didn't seem to work. Really, the balls weren't really getting, that final ball wasn't really getting to the man that it needed to score. And it was 35 minutes when Oliver Ampman kind of did it all by himself. And the way he made that work was by not passing. He went on a lovely
little mazy run.
Yeah, mazy run down the right wing, got to the byline and pulled it back. And it was actually it went
like in off didn't it?
Yeah, I think it went in off a defender. Yeah, absolutely. Even if it was cleared out a little way by the keeper and then bounced off the defender's leg and went in, I'm not sure. But it was it was disallowed because he run the ball off the end of the pitch. And
how do you know?
Yeah, well, difficult to tell, isn't it? No VAR and not many camera angles for us to assess. So it went in at half time, 0-0. Now, you made a comment, Kike, about the YouTube channel, and Yerkan was the guy from Kazakhstan who made the comment.
Yep.
And we've exchanged emails since then, and I've invited him to come on the preview pod for when Finland host Kazakhstan over here. So hopefully we can get some. We weren't negative about them. We did say we don't know the team very well, and we were expecting a tough game, and that's what we got. But if he can join us, then hopefully we'll have some real local knowledge for that
Lovely.
next game. Second half, few subs made during the second half, which saw Glenn Kamara coming on for Rasmus Schuller, Robert Taylor, and Benjamin Chelman coming on for Teemu Pukki on 66. And it took about 12 minutes before those guys combined with the Ant-Man, to provide the winning goal. Keke, do you want to talk us through it?
Yeah, I mean, we'd mentioned and Richard said that Glenn Kamara had not had much football recently. He's just joined Leeds, and yeah, he's had about 6 or 8 minutes of competitive football. But I mean, he didn't need to be super fit for that little ball. I mean, the class is obviously permanent, even if he is a bit shy of match sharpness. You know, the class just showed through with his involvement in the goal. And yeah, absolutely superb Ant-Man slotted finish. I mean, just on the inclusion of Oliver Ant-Man, it was really great to see him, because he is a more direct player. You know, he's probably our most direct player, I would have said. So so it was great to see his inclusion, and fantastic to see him continue his amazing form for the national team. He's what is that? Is that 4 in 6 or something he's got now? So so yeah, that was really good. But as you say, Chelman was involved as well. Another player who's decent, good class. So so yeah, it was a lovely little move. You know, sort of 1, 2, 3 triangle passing, and ended up in the back of the net. But the finish, I mean, he had a little bit to do. The ball had to find its way around the keeper there into the I think it was the right hand corner. But yeah, cracking, good goal.
And this is why we chose an image of Oliver Ant-Man to illustrate this episode, because he was clearly the sort of the goal scorer, the only goal scorer from these 2 games. So that's our star player. I did make a few notes that in both games, actually, of important saves from Lukas Radetzky, and there were two or three in this one where Kazakhstan had. I've written down here Kazakhstan chance several times, so they did have chances, but maybe more like longer range efforts. Yeah. Actually, in both games, and maybe that's something that's worth noting as well, is the strength of the defence. We talked about this in the preview, that 18 months ago there was this churn of defenders from the squad and different players coming in, but I thought we looked really solid, and Hoskonen was really, really stood out for me. I really noticed him in both games. So I guess the defence is something that we can have some security. We will have some security from going forward in the future. Just
on that point, Mark, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think, you know, Jensen, Ivanov and Hoskonen all looked pretty solid. I mean, Ivanov looked class, absolutely class across. I mean, we'll get to the Denmark game, but Ivanov looked class across both games. I think Hoskonen looked decent across both games. We will discuss the team selection for the Denmark game, but Richard Jensen looked good in this game. I mean, he did hobble off towards the end, or at the final whistle. I think he was hobbling off, as you said. Kazakhstan weren't afraid to be a bit physical, and I think he did sort of have a bit of trouble towards the end. And I don't know if that's why he didn't make the starting 11 for the Denmark game, but he was on the bench. But yeah, I think, you know, those guys, those three three centre backs, I think across both games. Obviously, we'll get onto Denmark. We all know what happened, but yeah, honestly, no qualms at all. I think that should be quite a little settled defence for times to come. I mean, like, Ali will have seen Hoskonen play plenty of times before he moved off to Poland, but I don't know. You agree, Al?
Yeah, I really do agree, and I have to say that Hoskonen has also, since his move, has really taken a step up as well. I mean, same goes for Ivanov as well, who I'll sing their praises a little later on when we talk about the Denmark game. But clearly the step up in the leagues that they both sort of have gone through over the last year and a bit for the pair of them has really, it's made them more all-rounded defenders, that when they play against, you know, stronger opposition, they don't seem to look phased. They look calm under pressure. You know, they win so much in the air. So I think, as you said, Keke, you know, a real big positive to take away from the 2 games is definitely, you know, that central defensive partnership.
So at the end of this game, Finland were sitting pretty at the top of the table on 12 points. And I think we can maybe move over to talking about the Denmark game. And then at the end of it, I think let's have a chat about a couple of players, particularly like Teemu Pukki and Robert Taylor, because they both had a very different amount of game time during this weekend. And let's have a chat about their situations going forward. But Ali, would you like to start by talking us through the team for the Denmark game?
Yeah, so it definitely felt that this one was certainly more of a 5 at the back, possibly. Yeah, I mean, you could have a 5-3-2, but it also at times felt like a 5-4-1 as well, particularly out of possession, with Chalman and Kamara almost acting like wingers. I mean, Kamara really put in a shift yesterday. I think his performance was mixed. I thought there were some aspects of his game that was really, really good, and others that you could tell that he'd only played eight minutes of football. But it looked like a 5-4-1 with obviously Rossetzi in goal, Alho, Hoskonen, Ivanov, and then Matti Peltola, who was maybe the slightly the surprise inclusion, playing in the back there alongside Ivanov and Hoskonen. I'm much more used to seeing Peltola a little bit further forward in a more centre midfield kind of role. And then Niskanen, the left wing back position. Yeah, as I said, Chalman, Kamara, and then Schüller, Karinen, and then Teemu Pukki up front. So I think on paper, maybe Peltola was the only slight eyebrow raised, although I thought he was excellent.
Brilliant, yeah.
He did so well. He's one of those players that when you look at him, I don't know if it's just me that does. You look at him and you go, oh, he's going to get pushed around. Like he's going to get found wanting. He's going to get pushed about, but he was having none of it yesterday. He was really, really strong performer, and definitely going forward. I mean, he should definitely be eyeing up that third spot in defence. I mean, I'm sure Jensen would have something to say about that. He didn't really do anything wrong in the game on Thursday. He was just unlucky to be out injured. But I think on paper it looks like an interesting lineup, a strong lineup, if slightly kind of cobbled together at the same time. Again, I think Kamara moving out wide left had its positives when we're in possession, but then when we're losing possession, it did leave quite a gap.
I thought also.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry,
mate. I was just going to say you're absolutely right, Ali. I mean, there'll be people who know Matti Peltola a lot better than I do, and you're one of them. But you know, it was for me, it was a bit of a surprise. But the young lad didn't put a foot wrong, in my opinion. He had an absolutely fantastic game. I don't know what you mean. Like I mean, he is only 21, and he looks a young lad, but yeah, his performance was beyond his years. He really did well. I mean, obviously, I think down on the pitch there, you know, Robert Ivanov and Lukas Radetsky would have been talking him through it the whole way. But yeah, he didn't really put a foot wrong, and that's why as we go on and talk about how this game panned out and the result, that's why the result was so gutting, because that defensive three, those three centre backs didn't really put a foot wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, just one final thing on Peltola. There was a moment maybe halfway through the second half where Rasmus Højlund, who everyone was sort of keeping an eye on because he's just gone to Man United for 72 million euros, which more than double the entire lineup of the Finnish transfer fees. And Peltola absolutely smashed into him, won the ball, perfect tackle, and it got one of the biggest cheers of the afternoon, I think. And even though me being a Man United fan, I could have perhaps maybe winced at seeing the new striker getting clattered into, but not a bit of it. I was cheering as loud as as anyone when that tackle went in. So yeah.
Yeah, it was good after the first Denmark game to keep Højlund quiet in this one, stop him shining. And you mentioned about the value there. It was something that Rive said after the game, when the commentator asked him like what was the difference between the teams, and he said something like, well, their team is valued at 400 million and ours at 30 million. You know,
yeah.
When you look at it that way, I mean, money is not everything, and we talked in the preview about how Denmark's form had been this year. But yeah, it was an interesting observation. I thought over recent games we've talked about Kaan Kairinen and about him, I don't know, really participating in games. And I thought that in these two games I noticed him more and more. Is it maybe growing into this position and bringing in the form that Keke, you've talked about him displaying in Czech Republic, and bringing that into the national teams. I thought he was much more involved as well in these couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was getting onto the ball. He was trying those passes. I mean, he's good at the diagonals, trying to sort of break the back line with a diagonal pass. He was trying that, and yeah, he was getting involved. You know, I was on a bit of a downer yesterday because yeah, it was. I just wished he'd got his toe on that shot that eventually broke our defence and our arts. But yeah, you know, I can't complain over the two games. I think Kairinen's done very well. So yeah, it's good to see him settling into the weight of that national team jersey and starting to find his feet and ping those balls about that he does for Sparta Prague, I should say. Sorry.
He's fairly press resistant as well. So like he's very good at dropping the shoulder when he can feel someone trying to close him down, which I think in modern football, when so many teams are trying this high press game, you really need players that are able to do that quickly and effectively. And that was definitely the thing that I'd noticed in these two games, that as well as the passing, as you mentioned, Keke, that yeah, he is really good at just dropping a shoulder and then calming the ball down and making the right pass.
I mean, you said there, Ali, about the high press and what sort of tactics modern teams employ and all that. And yeah, we got a couple of comments across our social media various channels today. We had one come in on Twitter from a chap known as Pudding Gentleman. Work that one out yourself. But he said to us, what system were Finland trying? He said he'd had a few pints, so he didn't remember everything correctly. But it looked like every time Finland were playing out from the back, as soon as it got to midfield, they would just try and hoof it and lose possession. I mean, I'm not quite sure that hoof it is the right terminology. But yeah, I mean, we do with even off. We do try and play it out from the back, and yeah, I think we were in the Denmark game. We were trying that tried and tested Rive tactic of maybe drawing a better opponent onto ourselves, and then trying to break the back line and get Teemu Pukki to sort of run in behind. But that's it. It just didn't seem to work. We will talk about the opportunities. There were one or two opportunities, but in the answer to that post on Twitter, I think that's what we were doing. And then we had another one from a Denmark fan who posted on our YouTube saying he was also curious with the tactics. He said with this many games left, why were Finland playing quite sort of negatively? But as I say, I just think that was the game plan, really, to try and draw Denmark on and then sort of do them on the break. But
I think that's a good answer, Keke. That is what they were trying, and we just weren't good enough at converting the breaks. Like I made a few comments in the 31st minute. Kamara set Pukki free, lovely pass, sort of dinked it over the top, and Pukki ran towards goal but had little support, and his shot was ultimately blocked. Just before half time, Pukki broke. He was 2-on-2 Chelman was there as well, and he just
Got
couldn't
to
get the
pass it.
ball. Yeah,
He's got to
couldn't
pass it to
didn't
Chelman.
get the ball across. Yeah, that's right. And
I mean, the breakaways. I mean, we did have the breakaways, but we just weren't quite sharp enough on the breakaways, and
also the player was often isolated. That was the final comment I made, that we were breaking, and then the player was on his own. It's like no one there around him.
And I mean, it was almost like Pukki had to put his foot on the ball, wait for people to catch up, and by that time, the Danish defence had got themselves back and set. So, I mean, it was that sort of game. But you got to say, guys, like, you know, if we'd have nicked a win there, it would have been absolutely fantastic, right? We would have all been over the moon. But also, if we would have just survived that little bit longer and come away with that 0-0, you have to say that the game plan has worked ultimately. I think that we would have been just as overjoyed with a 0-0 draw as we would. Well, not just as we would have been absolutely ecstatic with a 1-0 win to us. But I think we would have all taken a nothing each. Do you know what I mean?
It certainly felt when that goal went in that the stadium kind of felt like the game plan has gone now. Yeah, which of course happens with a late goal, but particularly when the second half had been panning out how it was panning out, it really did sort of take the energy out of the stadium a little bit.
It often feels to me that when we concede a goal, then the team gets this added impetus to really go for it. And I think it happened even in this game. We were really pushing towards the end, but when you let a goal in the 86th minute, you haven't given yourself much time to get back, have you?
Nah.
Ali, talk a little bit about. Let me set this up by saying, for all of Denmark's pressure throughout the whole game, and they did control a lot of the possession, they were mostly limited to long-range shots, and they had several long-range shots on target, and they just couldn't get past that man in goal. Keke's sitting here. For those that are listening, Keke's sitting there in a bright orange Lukas Radetzky shirt. But Ali, just talk a little bit about some of those saves that he pulled off.
Yeah, I mean, there was the free kick early on in the second half from Eriksson, which was very close to, because I think they gave that free kick for handball.
Yeah, dodgy.
Yeah. I mean, but it was it was a bit unlucky, to be honest, but it was also quite near the penalty box. So let's take that free kick and move on. And Eriksson, you know, when he steps up, he's got a track record of scoring free kicks, hasn't he? Both for club and country. So he hit it down low to Radetzky's left, and he palmed it away really strong left palm, really good save.
There was one in the 15th minute as well, a sort of a long range shot from the right that was sort of swerving a bit in the air, and Luke kind of got his hand to it and tipped it over. And then another one in the 70th minute, a long range shot from Norgard that was
palmed it away.
But he was diving towards the top corner with his left hand, and then his right hand came up because it was moving so much in the air.
And the thing is, in real time, it actually looked, because I was sort of behind the goal from where that shot was, so I had a really good look at it. But in real time, it didn't look like it was as good a save as it did look like on TV, because of the angle that I was at. It sort of thought, Norgard's had a shot, Radetzky's going to save that. And then he palmed it away, and you sort of go, oh, hold on a minute.
That wasn't as comfortable as it looked.
Yeah, that wasn't as comfortable as I thought. And then they immediately showed the replay up on the big screen, and then you got a better look at it, and you go, oh, yeah, actually, that was a really good save, and the ball really moved quite last minute. Again, Radetzky was really keeping us in it, but we limited Denmark to those long shots, and we limited them to crosses. I mean, they had, they put Højlund on, they put Josef Poulsen on, who's about 7'1" as well, and they were limited to all these crosses. And every time it really felt that Ivanov and Hoskonen were dealing with it. Even the wing backs were tucking in, and even the wing backs aren't the tallest, Niskanen and Alhol, but they were like putting the Danish strikers off, at least physically. So it felt like that's what they were limited to. We were doing a really good job of it until, the 86th minute when everything changed.
I mean, that Denmark team, you could see by the way they celebrated that goal, they knew that they'd been in a game. You know what I mean? They knew that they had maybe not nicked that 3 points. That's a bit, but they knew that was a precious 3 points. You know, it had taken a lot of hard work to come away with that. So, I mean, ultimately, we are disappointed, and because the loss has come at the second game of the break, it's a little bit hard to remember the joy of the win away, you know. But I think we do have to look at the two games as a collective international break, and we did our match predictions, and I'm sure Mark might go back over those and tell us where we went wrong. But one away game, one home game, to come away and arguably against the strongest team in the group, to come away with 3 points out of the two games, is that so terrible? You know what I mean? So
no, I think
I think we've got to keep our spirits up. But I don't know if you want to go into a bit more depth into the second half and how it panned out, Mark. But
I mean, if you've got something specific to say, I just thought we'd got to the point where we were about to concede the goal, and we didn't talk about the goal in detail. But if you've got something else you want to say,
I just want to rewind a little bit and go back to, I think it was about the 60-minute mark where Rive decided to make the first set of substitutions. If you've got some notes about them, mate.
Yeah, so it was a triple substitution at that time. Pohjanpalo.
We'd already had Jari Uronen replace Niskanen, hadn't we?
Of course, yeah, that's true. There was an injury in the 12th, earlier than the 12th minute, but he finally gave up in the 12th, and he was sitting there with his arm in what can only be described as a chiffon scarf tied around his neck, supporting his arm. So I don't know if it was a shoulder or collarbone or something like that. Has that been confirmed?
No, I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay, so that was in the 12th minute. Jari Uronen came on for Niskanen, and then in the 62nd, Pohjanpalo came on for Pukki. Puru Soiri came on for Nikolai Alho, and the one that I think we were a bit surprised about was that Ant-Man came on for Rasmus Schüller.
Yeah, I mean, I understand bringing Ant-Man on. As we said, he's probably our most direct player. He can dribble. He doesn't mind running with the ball. He can run at an opponent. He can beat opponents with his feet. We can go on to assess Ant-Man's contribution, but I just think withdrawing Rasmus Schüller at that point in the game was just it bewildered me a little bit. I mean,
you're speechless.
We've seen, and that don't happen very often. I mean, we've seen over the years that we've been doing this podcast, we've seen Rasmus Schüller grow and go from strength to strength. Do you know what I mean? He is now an absolute one of the first names on the team sheet. That guy is a warrior. Do you know what I mean? The opposition don't like him. He'll climb all over you. He puts a tackle in. He's strong. He shields the ball he uses his body. And I just think, I mean, if you want Ant-Man to come on and try and run at him and get something, I kind of get that. But for me, taking Radeoff was a little bit of an own goal for me, to be honest.
Yeah, I felt the same. I was surprised. I mean, what we've been saying about Glenn Kamara having not played much football, and I mean, to be fair, he was still going physically, still running, still contributing all the way to the end. It's more like his touch that looked rusty more than anything else. But still, I was surprised that he stayed on for the whole game, and Schüller came off on the hour. That was confusing.
How did that substitution go down in the stadium, Ali? Was there?
Yeah, it really felt like that Kamara would be the one to come off, particularly the fact that he was playing quite far towards on the left wing when we're in possession, and like even sort of drifted out and to join Pukki when, you know, let's say if Ivanov had the ball, he was going to be like, he'd be the out ball on the left wing. So it felt like Kamara would be the natural choice for that. And without sort of repeating ourselves, he was cool, calm, collected the whole game, as we sort of expect. Really competed well defensively, did all the work that he needed to do. I mean, just looking at the lineup, I guess Kamara probably was the only option for Ant-Man to replace him with. And Riva always has his reasons. You know, I trust him.
No, that's it. Yeah,
there may be something going on in the background we don't know about. Well, exactly. and niggle or something. You know, you just don't know what's behind it. I think you do have to wonder though. 86th minute is when Denmark got their goal. They had a period of pressure around the Finland box. The ball was played across from the right towards Højbjerg, and he wasn't closed down. Took a touch and drove a shot into the bottom corner, across the goal into the bottom corner. And you have to wonder if Rade had been there in the middle of the park, would he have been the man to close him down? It's all ifs and buts and maybes, but you know, looking at it, probably yes is probably the answer. That's right. And also looking at it, Pohjanpalo was nearby, and he sort of watched rather than just dropping in a few meters and putting a bit of a tackle in. He sort of watched Højbjerg, and that was a bit frustrating as well. I mean,
I guess that's, you know, the difference between a number 9 and, you know, a number 6, number 8. You know, wherever we put Schuler, it's a different mindset, isn't it? And you know, at 86 minute, of course, you know, everyone's tired. Even the subs, you know, were running about quite a bit. And I don't know, sometimes it's not a good thing to think, but sometimes you think, you know, you've been shooting for, you know, all game, and Radetzky's been taking everything. Yeah, why not have another one? And of course, the law of averages does kind of mean though that eventually one of those is going to fly off the boot and is going to hit, you know, a top corner or a bottom corner. And you know, Højbjerg struck it really sweetly, as you said, Mark. And I also think Radetzky was possibly unsighted a little bit as well.
He wasn't a million miles away as well.
He wasn't. He was. I mean, it was really in the corner. He nearly got there, but I do think the bodies that were in front of him maybe just slightly blocked his vision. And you know, it is these, you know, split-second, millimeter kind of moments that, you know, make all the difference when it comes to playing these big teams, or bigger teams at least.
Yeah.
So that's how it finished, 1-0 to Denmark. And before we have a look at the table and the upcoming fixtures, just a couple of players I want to mention and ask you about. One of those is Robert Taylor, who came on in the first game in the 85th minute, and then in the second game in the 84th minute.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's been very high profile through the summer. We've talked about him in previous episodes about, you know, how he's making Lionel Messi look good over in Miami. And yet he got about 10 minutes plus injury time in these two games. What did you think about that?
I mean, I'm a big fan of Rob Taylor. You know, he came on the podcast. He told us about his history, all his youth football. Our people in the 8th tier of English football at Lincoln Railway Tavern told him he wasn't quite good enough, and now he's playing with one of the greatest of all time and celebrating with him. So I've got a lot of time and a lot of respect for Rob Taylor, and also he's from Uvascular as well, which you know, gives me another reason to love him. But yeah, I mean, there was an interesting little segment at the beginning of the Yle broadcast saying, and they were discussing what is Rob Taylor's role in this Huuhkajat side, you know?
Okay.
Like, is there a role for Rob Taylor? What is that role? And, you know, I won't pretend to understand absolutely everything they were going on about, but I could get the gist that they were that's the question that they were sort of asking. But it's, obviously he's included in the majority of squads. I think Rive must like him. He must know what he's all about. But I just think that Rive is maybe because of the teams we come up against and the way that Rive sets up. I just think that maybe Rob is a little bit too attacking minded for Rive to put him in a starting lineup. I mean, I would love dearly for when we go away to San Marino to see Rob Taylor get a start, you know, because I don't think we've got anything to fear from San Marino. It's the last game of the campaign. You know, the way that pans out, we may need a win there, but I would dearly love to see Rob get that starting berth and see what he can do when he runs at opponents, because that's where he's dangerous. The only answer I can give you, Mark, is that maybe Rive thinks that Robert is a little bit too attack minded for his lineup at the moment.
Better suited as a wide player in a front three, maybe, rather than when we're playing.
Rather than that wing back in that back five, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I that's the only answer I can give you.
And I think in the WhatsApp group, one of the other guys, maybe Mark, said that we have to start to come to terms with the fact that we're approaching the post Pukki era of the Finnish national team. And I wanted to ask about that. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you think that he perhaps could have a different but a different role within the team or within the squad? Or do you think that it's just 2 games and, you know, back in it in the next couple?
Well, I mean, what I would say is he's always still a threat. Like, I don't think that his finishing has necessarily got any worse. Maybe Denmark, his decision making, you know, with the final ball, like as we mentioned before, like cutting it across to Chalman, he would get in really good positions, and there were a few good like through balls, but he has obviously lost that little bit. I mean, about half yard of pace. I mean, he was never, you know, rapido, but you know, he's definitely lost a little bit of that. And the thing that was noticeable for me yesterday was his recovery time after those sprints, or after, you know, when he was pressing. It took him a little bit longer to recover, which happens to the best of us, Teemu. So,
not me. I never had any pace. It never made any difference at all.
Okay. So I think, yeah, it was Mark that mentioned it. I think it's worth a discussion, and maybe, you know, I wouldn't say he shouldn't be, you know, in the squad in October and November. You know, he's still scoring goals in MLS, which, you know, is a pretty good league still.
Yep.
So there's absolutely no way I think that any of us are going to start writing him off. But it might be a time to at least consider in these bigger games against the better teams that maybe a quicker presence or a more physical presence up front, like Poinpalo, or, I mean, can Rob Taylor play a false 9? Possibly. I don't know. Or Chalman can go down the middle. But yeah, it could be time to at least think that other options should be considered.
I mean, we've also got young Daniel Håkans, haven't we? Who did so well against San Marino. Obviously picked up a bit of a knock, so I think he was included in this squad, wasn't he? And then had to withdraw. But yeah, he's obviously another option who we'll keep an eye on, and hopefully he can take over the mantle and be our talisman for the next 10 years.
Hawkins and Ant-Man doing their business in the same team is not an awful prospect for the next 10 years, is it?
That's it.
All right. On that bombshell that Ali thinks that Pukki's out of the squad in the near future.
Don't edit it that way. Don't edit it that way. I know you can clip those words together.
Yeah.
The Group H table, after 6 games, so 6 games played for each team, 4 left. It's so tight.
It is.
Slovenia are top with 13 points and a +7 goal difference. Denmark are second on 13 points, +7 goal difference, but have scored one goal less. Finland are third on 12 points with a +7 goal difference, and again scored one less goal. And Kazakhstan are fourth with 12 points and a +4 goal difference. It just couldn't be tighter. All those four are going into the last 4 games with everything to play for.
Yeah,
surely are going to be nicking points off of each other here, there, and everywhere. Finland will be playing Slovenia, Kazakhstan, Northern Ireland, and San Marino. Those two, Northern Ireland are 5th on 3 points, and San Marino bottom on 0-1. Finland's upcoming games. If you look at the link to the episode description, there's a link there to a blog post, and I've got all of this info in the blog post with links to the original sources. The UEFA website is actually quite good. It's quite easy to navigate.
Ooh.
And yeah, we know that Ali and his Huuhkajat mates don't like UEFA, but I do like their website. But it's quite good. And as you scroll down to the fixtures, they have little links to 2-minute highlight videos and things like that. So it's all good in one place. But on the 14th of October, Saturday 14th, Finland are away to Slovenia. Then on Tuesday, the 17th, they're home to Kazakhstan. And then into November on the 17th, that's Friday 17th, I think.
Yep, Friday.
Finland play Northern Ireland at home. And then the 20th, is that Monday, Keke, or Tuesday?
That is a Monday.
Monday, away to San Marino. So, in theory, finishing with the 2 weakest teams, but I'm not sure Northern Ireland have ever been that easy for Finland to dispatch with. So we've got to be looking at 3 very competitive games before, hopefully an easier one against San Marino.
Yeah, I mean, it's in our own hands, but as you say, this group is so tight. It's every single team is going to be thinking that it's in their own hands. So
yeah.
You got to beat what's put in front of you. I mean, Slovenia away. I'll be there. I'm going to Ljubljana. I mean, I thought that was just going to be a jolly up and try some Slovenian beers, but now the game's got a bit more of an importance. It's quite an important fixture now. Hopefully, we can get something there. I mean, again, I won't pretend to be an expert on Slovenian football. We'll have a little look at them closer to the time, but they are. You can see from their recent results, they are no mugs.
Keke, get out there on social media and see if you can find a Slovenia football show or a Slovenian like English language thing. Because why not get somebody to come on and talk about their team?
Slovenian football show.
Well, there must be. I mean, if there's one for Finland, there must be one for Slovenia.
That's it. Yeah, we'll have a look. And then the other thing: 2 home games. Kazakhstan at home. Northern Ireland at home. I know you're saying that about Northern Ireland, Mark, but I really hope we should be beating those in a packed Helsinki Olympic Stadium. So we'll see how it goes. And then in November, late November, I'll be packing my bags off to San Marino via Bologna, I think it is, and hopefully it'll be party time.
Very nice. You'll be on that pitch again. Whose leg are you going to grab this time, or are you just going to
wait and see?
You're just opportunist, aren't you?
Yeah.
Let's hope you have a reason to grab someone's leg. But I reckon
indeed
that is a good place to wrap it up. I think, listener, that we will be back. Well, probably towards the end of September. When
Suomen Cup final, we got to do that.
Well, we got Suomen Cup final on the 30th, and it's kind of updating on maybe the first couple of rounds of the Mestaruussarja and Haastajasarja in the Veikkausliiga. So we'll have a bit of domestic action, and then middle of October for the international games. So until the next episode, Keke, thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just want to, before we go, just one more thing. We don't want to forget the girls. Helmut are playing Slovakia. Are they playing Slovakia? Is it Slovakia? Yes, they're playing Slovakia towards the end of the month as well. So,
and isn't that the Women's Nations League starting?
Women's Nations League. They're playing down in Turku. So,
right.
get get your tickets for that. Head down to Turku and support the girls. So we might have to have a little look at that as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, good point. Let's keep that in mind and let's see if we can schedule these things rather than like deciding at the last minute that this would be a good idea. Let's have a look at the calendar.
We do schedule.
Yeah,
anyway,
we do.
Thanks,
Kiki. And thanks, Ali. Good to get your insights from inside the ground yesterday, and then you can pass that baton on to Keke for the next round of games.
Absolutely, will do.
Sweet as.
You've been listening to the Finnish Football Show. You can find us online at finishfootballshow.com. Remember to subscribe to the show wherever you're listening or watching. You can follow the Finnish Football Show page and group on Facebook and also on Instagram. See the links in the episode description. You can also connect with the 5 hosts on Twitter, at Explore Finland, at FC Suomi, at Escape to Suomi, at Kekkimuleri, and at Mano99. Links to the Finnish Football Show merch stores are also in the episode description.